Hello again, friends. It's the Normal Onion back with the best construction worker in Knox County, Orville Milam. Day 31 is more or less the trip back to the Rusty Rifle to unload our spoils of conquest from Riverside. I'll take this time to slowly organize my loot, starting with the guns and ammo. This would add up to 4 crates of all-American Second Amendment goodness. The last part of Day 31 and the morning of Day 32 would see me working on the raised platform area where I intend to put a farm. Orville's technique of disregarding structural integrity is certainly a sight to behold. During the last episode, when I went to check out the highway to West Point, there were survivor houses that I passed by which I had wanted to check once I finished building the deck. With the distillery van emptied out, I set out towards the opposite end of Muldraugh. Since I have been away for a while, zombies have repopulated this end of town and I had to hop out to safely get rid of them. Instead of bugging the Lorax this time, I left the initial welcoming party with the Big G himself and figured I could take the rest of the riffraff out. I guess it was Sunday in-game though, since even more zombies had shown up. Seeing as Orville is a law-abiding citizen, there is an occupancy limit in the church to enforce, so he took them out on a nice walk in the neighborhood to distract them long enough to drive past the car wreck. The northern end of Muldraugh was certainly no better as far as zombie numbers, but at least there was plenty of foliage to lose the zombies in, and I'd also use their assistance to break down the barricades to one of the survivor homes. While they were distracted, I'd take the time to turn off the van so as not to attract more zombies to my location while I slowly whittled down the ghouls closest to the survivor houses. While Orville's smashing heads in, what if we come up with a title or a nickname for him? He's not quite at level 10 short blunt mastery, while I'll give him the best name I could come up with, so here's a few I came up with myself. How does the Kentucky Cranium Crusher sound? Orville the Obliterator. One Punch Orville. Ooh, I think I'll actually save that last one when we get into the intense exercise stage of the apocalypse. Anyways, after clearing out the survivor houses, I found even more guns and ammo to take back to the Rusty Rifle, but as it was getting pretty late in game, I went back to the house where Orville's story began. It was practically untouched and still had the griddle pan sitting on the driveway. After dealing with some vandals and doing some push-ups, we move on to day 33. After unloading and organizing the loot from the survivor houses, I went to the gas station nearby to refill any empty gas cans and fought some more zombies while debating on what my next course of action should be to clear the road to West Point. I could slowly creep up the highway like I'm doing now to train up my short blunt weapon skill, scavenge every propane tank I can find and rush it to the car wrecks, show off my firearm collection to the citizens of Muldraugh, or drive a scenic route to West Point. Either way I went, it will certainly be a long and most likely violent process. I would contemplate over this whilst reading Metalworking Volume 1. I eventually came to the conclusion that clearing out the car wrecks would serve me better in the long run, so I would set my sights on turning the large warehouse on the northern end of town as my forward operating base for clearing out the wreckage. Before setting out on this venture, I figured I should take the propane torch that I do have at the moment to the crossroads to get an idea of how much propane I should take along. Well, I suppose it isn't too bad. It'll be a slow process for sure, but I can speed it up if I take multiple torches so I don't have to keep refilling a single one every time I dismantle a wreck. With that in mind, I began my advance to the northern end of town, every swing refining Orville's technique to a whopping level 8 in short blunt. After some time, I return home to some vandals at my doors, but they are swiftly dispatched, and I end the day with some exercise and reloading training. Second verse, same as the first. Even with fog, the zombies eat dirt. Try as it might, even exercise fatigue wouldn't slow my warpath up the highway, and I reached level 4 in Nimble. I'd take a short break in the convenience store nearby, and while the Kentucky Cranium Crusher does its thing, I'd like to take this time to go into annotated maps. Essentially, these are randomly generated treasure maps that lead to survivor homes or secret loot stashes that can be hit or miss, and I have been collecting a few throughout this series. The one I find in the convenience store leads me to Rosewood, so I figured I'd take a quick detour and found a shotgun hiding in the floorboards of the marked house. While certainly nowhere near as good as paying a visit to a police armory or gun store, more shotgun shells are always a plus. I drove back to Muldraugh to continue my crusade, only to be met with a mild inconvenience. At the very least, Orville's superhuman ability to phase through solid matter if the plot demands it keeps him safe from the approaching ghouls. After dispatching his pursuers, we can easily fix this problem as there are working vehicles nearby, and through the power of magnetism we set the wee-woo truck upright and continue the fight up the highway, marking progress with every broken weapon like swords on a battlefield. Day 37 ends with some exercise and listening to the weather bot. More fighting would ensue on day 38, and by the end of this, we made it to the storage lot at the northern end of town where I'd used a small warehouse as my place to crash for the night. Day 39 would see me clearing out the large warehouse at the northern end of Muldraugh and fortifying it to use as my base of operations for clearing out the vehicle wrecks on the road to West Point. By this point, I amassed 7 propane torches and 3 propane tanks, which should make for a smoother experience clearing out the wrecks that I can't or don't feel like towing out of the way. Orville dons his welding mask like a knight pulling down their visor and sits off towards the car wrecks on day 40. At the site of the car wrecks, I was met with some resistance, but it's nothing that our currently masked hero can't handle, and we get to work on clearing a path. Since you can't peek around while in the process of torching a car, which takes some amount of time, there is always the risk of a zombie sneaking up on you. The scariest part is that the zombie didn't have proper eye protection when approaching someone in the act of metalworking, so Orville did what any sane person would do to avoid a lawsuit. He left no witnesses. With that section of road cleared, it was getting pretty close to dinner time. A nearby gas station would provide us with a feast of Slim Jims and salt and vinegar lays. Soon enough, the residents of Dixie got upset over the fact that I took the last Slim Jim on the shelf, but again, nothing that Orville can't handle. Afterwards, I'd scout ahead a little to see how the road looked before making my way back to Muldraugh. Instead of returning to the large warehouse, I went back to the rusty rifle to check on the generator there. Maintaining a generator requires the generator to be shut off when either refueling or repairing. To repair a generator, you need scrap electronics and a screwdriver. If a generator's condition falls below 20%, there is a chance for the generator to catch fire and explode. With that in mind, be as diligent as Robert Kendo.
I'm keeping a close eye on things. Ah!
Some exercise while listening to the weatherbot concludes day 40. Day 41 begins with some practice swings to deal with the ghouls on the way back to Dixie and clearing the wrecks. This opens the way to a four-way stop that has a car dealership, a Spiffos, a clothing store, and a gas station. As I was getting a little late, it was just a scouting drive-by and I returned to the large warehouse to rest up and sort the loot I would take back to the rusty rifle. Heading back on the morning of day 42, I figured it would be a good idea to grab another generator from the storage unit on the southern part of town since I was headed that way, and refueled the wee-woo truck before spending the time to sort out what I would take to West Point. While doing so, I had an annotated map sitting on one of the bar counters which potentially gave the location where someone had left firearms. After loading up the ambulance with some freedom berries and a generator, I'd spend the rest of the night training mechanics, and on the morning of day 43, I reached level 4 in mechanics. I initially set out to try and go for Old Man Willie's potential gun stash, but after bonking some Zeds and reaching level 9 short blunt, I decided that the possible guns weren't my goal at the moment. With that, I decided to head back home after clearing out some groups moving on the highway to make my bumpy ride as smooth as possible, and concluded the day with some rooftop reading. On day 44, I'd make my move to West Point and establish a base at the American Tire building just outside of the eastern entrance to town. This is probably one of the safest places in West Point that's close to town, which is like saying one microwave hot pocket is not as hot as another microwave hot pocket, but you'll still do the regardless. First though, we have to get there, and so we venture off in the other wee-woo mobile we have in our possession. Upon arrival, I proceeded to administer double-barreled therapy to the residents of West Point. Not only to clear out the zombies faster, but also to make entry into the town a little easier the following day.
Shotgun!
Roughly 4 boxes of shotgun shells later, and the American Tire is now under my control. I'd spend the rest of the day barricading the place, set up a cot, and patching any holes. While I was doing this, at some point I realized I forgot to pack a sledgehammer with me to break into the West Point gun store with. The closest known one is at the large Muldrow warehouse, but I didn't stress out too much. There was a hardware store downtown and a factory which could potentially spawn one in, and so I set off towards the factory on day 45. No dice there, nor at the hardware store, but there is one method of getting to the store that I'd wanted to try out for a while. After clearing out the area around the gun store, I put this plan in action. We cut down some trees, built some stairs, and stuck a sheet rope onto a fence, and just like that, we're in, boys. I definitely need to empty out the generator from the van before I start taking anything out though. So it's back to the American Tire where I drop off the Jenny and make plans to check out the bridge to Louisville. Visiting Orville's original house earlier, and being at the bridge which connects West Point, notoriously difficult spawn location, to Louisville, the biggest city in Vanilla Project Zomboid, is a profound feeling of accomplishment, even after playing this game for many hours on end. Have you ever been to Louisville? If so, how was your first experience? Leave a comment down below. Like this video if you're enjoying Orville's journey, and maybe consider subscribing for more content from a talking onion with a purple crayon face. Or do whatever you want. Either way, much love, take care, and have a wonderful day.